If you go to your physician for an annual physical, and especially if it's the beginning of a year, you're going to go through a whole list of questions. Are you now or have you ever had severe headaches, ringing in your ears, sinus problems, unstoppable coughing, digestive, the list will go on and on. And you'll have to indicate every one of those. And then that's in advance to meeting with a physician. Then he's going to go through the list with you, the same list again. Are you or have you? Yeah. I want to do one of those with you. And I want to address these thoughts, the ministry leader's self-watch. I have 10 items for you to consider, and so I hate lists and reviewing lists just like I do in that annual physical. And you will now. But I want you to know what to watch for. Experts agree that it's getting harder and harder for ministry leaders because of the changing culture we're a part of, for the morality, for the theology that's there, for issues confronting us every day. There are more and more pitfalls for the ministry leader. So as we go through the list, I want you to notice those that you might be most susceptible to. Areas where you're at risk, just as if you were physically at risk in, let's say, respiratory things as opposed to digestive and so on. You notice the things where you need to give attention, where you're likely to have a hazard and some crash in your ministry. So let's walk through those together, and you just think for yourself, what do I need to pay special attention to? The ministry leader's self-watch. First, an inflated sense of self, like living life on a pedestal. This cracks me up because early in ministry I was in a small group with married couples, and there's a woman there who used to say, "Oh, Pastor, what do you think, Pastor?" with that elevated kind of "you're something special" attitude. And my wife, I used to love my wife, would kind of help her to kick me off the pedestal and go, "Come on now, I live with the guy. Stop that. Don't live life on a pedestal. Don't allow yourself to be placed there." You don't want to be out of touch with the reality, like there are some believers running around the planet who think, Christians never have troubles at all. They just don't. Troubles can't come to a professional ministry person. It can't touch you. No, you would be out of touch with reality if that's your thinking. Or the idea that you would be incapable of mistakes. It must be somebody else. I couldn't have. This inflated sense of self is a hazard for sure. Shared anxiety. This is especially new, I think, in our day. Nervous about our changing culture, or at least it's on a big increase. All of a sudden we're not sure about our job, we're not sure of our health, we're not sure of the security of our government, there's an anxiety, we're nervous about a changing culture. And ministry people don't want to fall into that nervousness about the changing culture. They want to find confidence in Christ and walk through difficult times. We don't want to think we have all the answers for a chaotic world. We do not. If you try to find all those answers, you'll find yourself in a great deal of anxiety as well. Another sharing of anxiety is when you take stress home. You behave like a different person, or you're not actually present when you're home. Your brain is still in ministry and anxious for things there. And some people go to addictions in order to cope with anxiety. You might veg out in front of the TV, you might drink yourself to sleep, you might fall into all kinds of addictions. And as much as you start to let your mind go in one direction, a repeated direction, and it's not a particularly good direction, in order to cope with something, you want to stop yourself quick and get free from that. So addictions don't let them become a way to deal with anxiety. Resenting unfair comparisons. With technology, people are now listening to preachers, teachers, the greatest of spiritual leaders all over the world, and you're being compared with them. And that's somewhat unfair. You have a different role and a different expertise, but if you get to resenting unfair comparisons, that can be very hurtful to you. In comparison to mega churches, when maybe you're a small church, or feeling inadequate because others are so much better at absolutely everything. There's someone better at it than you are, but you're maybe not called to be that expert, or especially a conglomerate of so many experts all in one body. And you may find yourself responding with a bitter spirit. That's not a place you want to go. Don't be subject to attacks of unfair comparisons. Over busy schedules make a lot of people uncomfortable. The time commitments of your members. You try to set a meeting, and you can only get half of a group to a meeting. The other half are too busy with other time commitments. And you wish they'd straighten out and make church first. Oh, you're in trouble. Failing to make church their priority is not your job. You can't help them make church a priority. Well, you can try, but they're not all going to come there. And over busy schedules can eat up a ministry leader. Consumer mentality. Don't allow people to just be served all the time. Just keep serving because, oh, well, Christ served, and so you'll just keep serving people without requiring them to be serving. People are called upon to serve the Lord and to serve others and to serve their community as Christ was. And so if they're always just being served without serving others, that's bad. Don't allow that to happen. Part of that is church hopping. Don't resent church hoppers. They're going to do that. They're consumers. We don't want that. We try to get people engaged in ministry rather than just being served. And you know, the same could happen to yourself. You could take on that consumer mentality and start to think, oh, if I just were somewhere else, if the grass was greener somewhere else, maybe I should get out of this. And so that would be a consumer mentality that you've allowed to overtake you. Unrealistic expectations. To think that you need to be an expert in all areas. You do not. You need a team maybe to help you with a lot of other areas. That pressure to do it yourself. When maybe you don't want to do it at all. Don't put that pressure on yourself. Don't let it come on you. Transfer it and look for others to do those things. Sometimes the ministry wants to do more of a particular ministry, but resources are growing fewer, and maybe that ministry should close. Last Sunday I was at church, and because of illness, we didn't have enough leaders to run our children's ministry for one of the worship services. We simply had to close it. Kiddos had to hang out with their parents during that worship time. But we can't necessarily keep going with fewer resources, whether it's dollars or people. And so don't be unrealistic in expectations. Now, the failure to involve other leaders. A lot of times we try to do more programs all alone, but we're called to equip the believers in our church or in our ministry to step up and give leadership. If we want increased ministry, they need to be a part of it. Political correctness can be a pitfall. Trying to minister with those who do not have biblical values. It won't get the ministry work done as well. Or compromising with biblical standards. That's a bad pitfall. Check your pulse. Make sure you're not being attracted to those things. Money problems. Surviving on a meager salary when your needs are not being considered by your board. That can turn into really a bad attitude and can be very harmful to the ministry leader. Or expecting quality programs with lower funding. Money problems, don't let them eat you up. Codependency can be a problem, assuming the responsibility for the problems of dysfunctional people. Just getting caught in that difficulty, expecting to solve greater and greater abuse and addiction and brokenness problems that are all around us, and still avoiding burnout. These things can really get you enmeshed in a lot of troubles that will shortcut your ministry and cause you a lot of stress. I'm not saying don't engage them, but don't take on full responsibility for that which belongs to someone else. Loneliness, I'm going to conclude with this one. You can't expect to stay vibrant while you're isolated or continually opposed, perhaps, in a program or a ministry that you're responsible for. That can result in deep loneliness. And in loneliness, you might withdraw. You might find that you're exhausted. And so you withdraw from family and the support systems you need. And when you withdraw, you can go into exhaustion, just vegging out or depression or infidelity or any number of places you might go when you feel lonely. It's lonely at the top, many people say. I'm going to come back to what I began with. Your doctor would go through a list a lot longer than this 10. I've gone through the 10, and maybe you've identified a couple of areas where even now you're in trouble. And so please make the adjustment needed that you're not worn out as a ministry leader and not disqualified from what Christ has called you to. May God bless you in that consideration. And please be careful. I don't know if you're wearing an Apple Watch that's monitoring your body, but make sure you're on Selfwatch to care for yourself spiritually.